Hey, while I was sitting here, I thought I'd do my review of LaRs by Louise Eldritch, a 2016 novel set in the George W. Bush 9/11 era. Yes, 9/11 era, set in North Dakota on a Ojibwe reservation, where at the opening of the novel, the I think the worst thing happens, which is a a, a terrible accident where LaRoche Iron is shooting. He's doing some hunting, and he accidentally shoots and kills the son of a friend and a half sister of his wife's child, and kills him. And the novel is about sort of dealing with the terrible rift that causes, uh, and also just sort of the general hurts and pains and the personal histories, the history of the people. Of the people. It intercuts with from this kind of the presence of the novel, like 9/11, to but also back to the past with other natives, a woman called LaRose. Now, in the present of the novel, what ends up being what they descend the what LaRoche and his wife decide to do, after consulting with kind of elders and stuff like that, and a kind of a sweat lodge thing, is that they present the bereaved family, um, Peter and Nola, with their son, LaRose. He's the same age as the boy killed, 5 years old, and say, like, yeah, he is your son. They, after a little while, they kind of come to really, they regret that, just like they've lost their son. They bitterly miss their son. Nola really, the mother of the slain boy, Dusty, is having just, completely understandably, is going through a lot of horror. She has a lot of anger in her already. Um, it's there's she's kind of abusive towards her daughter Maggie. She's self-harming to herself. There's kind of scenes of, like, is there going to be suicide in this book? Stuff like that. It's really brutal. Um, when we intercut to the past, we see other LaRoses. The name LaRose has been used within the family for generations, starting with a young girl who gets basically sold to a kind of a fur trader. I believe it's a fur trader who rapes her, and she ends up participating in his murder. And there's some bizarre scenes of their fleeing the scene, and his severed, swollen head is rolling after them. So it's a vivid imagery of this thing, and they're running, and they're being chased. They're being chased by this head. And there's it's interesting. I'm reading Clearing the Plains at the moment, and TB comes up in these books, and the first LaRose has TB, but she's able to resist it. Um, she ends up getting treated by a doctor. Eventually, she does die after giving birth to, quite a few children. But the doctor's like, oh no, her body is scientifically important. I'm keeping it, because why would we respect the wishes, the rights of this person for, burial? It's like, no, we've made a decision for your own good, for the good of mankind, for our own good, for our own purposes. And indeed, even in the present, they're kind of agitating to have the body returned. Um, so it is a tough book. It's interesting who are some of the my favorite characters in the book. There's a guy called Romeo, who is was LaRoche's friend during childhood, and we meet him as in the present he is a drug addict. LaRoche has actually kind of raised his son that he's had with a woman that he refuses to tell. He's a schemer. It's your basic kind of an addict kind of personality of basically does everything to get his fix, to get what he wants. Incredibly selfish, but Eldritch does a really amazing job of he is a smart, intelligent guy who's he's using his intelligence to feed his addiction. But you can see there's so much more out of him, and we flash back to LaRoche and his childhood, and we learn about them, and we kind of get to have a sense of what his bitterness is, and it's really engaging. And we get to Peter and Nola, the surviving kid of the family's life, and she's a really tough, kind of flinty kid, a real handful. A piece of work is what she is described as by her teachers. And she's she will have her revenge when she decides she wants to have her revenge. She's another really awesome character in this book. And as I was reading this, I was oh, maybe this is why I like genre fiction, because this is so heavy stuff. But there's also tons of humor in this book, and tons of really hard-won healing in this book as well. It is not a book about a bunch of indigenous people as victims kind of a book. This is a vital, living community that has shit ton of problems, but they're dealing. And even at the end of the book, where it's oh, is this going to be a little too positive? Are we gonna go into it's too positive and it's kind of over egg the book? It's no, this book, I'm not going to reveal the last line, but it has the last couple of sentences are oh shit, no, things are going to still continue, which yeah. So yes, I really enjoyed this book. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. It was I got totally engaged by the characters. I mean, if you told me at the beginning, it's oh, it's about a young child getting shot by a family friend, I would have been oh God, I don't want to. But it's it was such a good book, such a good book. So I will definitely be picking up more books by Louise Eldritch, and she's written quite a few. So, and I've heard good things about other of her books. So yes, all right, I'll leave it there.